Okay, this is the homework 2 video. Notice some of the things that you will see printed here will change by the time you get to this document, but most of it will stay the same. I try to make updates to minimize your confusion. Okay, because the system keeps changing every year. Okay, so if you open this link in a new tab, you should get to the AU page that explains all the different options you have. I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to let you go there and familiarize yourself with the different options you have for getting into the virtual lab. So the recommendation is if you can install a virtual lab client on your desktop or your laptop, then you should probably do that because that will give you the smoothest experience with the software. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to assume the worst. I'm going to assume the student who can't install it, and towards that end I'm going to go ahead and go in through the web, which is always a possible way to do it. Okay, so if I want to go in through the web, I'm going to click on this link and I'm going to go in, and I'm actually already signed in, but if you're not already signed in, it's going to ask you to two-factor and all that stuff. Okay, so you're going to click on the virtual lab desktop, and you probably want to access local resources. That's usually the most convenient. So if that works, you may not have to download your data directly into the virtual environment. But again, I'm going to assume worst case scenario. I'm going to assume that you managed to get in, but for some reason the linkage didn't work. Okay, let's say the linkage didn't work and you need to get your data into this environment. I've got it downloaded right here, but I'm going to go into the Edge browser, and I think I've bookmarked this. There we go, somewhere in here, and you should be able to find your data set that you've been working on. So in this case, I just clicked and downloaded again, and then I'll just go ahead and show you how that process works in case I don't want to let you get stuck anywhere in this process, but I already did this. Then I click over here to my downloads directory, and then what I did is I just literally dragged this onto the desktop. So you can just drag that right on, but I already did that, so I don't need to do it again. Okay, so that's how you would get your data set onto the desktop so that you can begin your work in this environment. Okay, now we want to know how to open the software we're going to be using, and what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and type SPSS, and hopefully this will just work. Okay, we hold our breath because this is the part that kind of changes every year. Sometimes we have to click in a different place or coax the computer. Somehow we're happy because this is what we expect to see. We have no data, so we have an empty data set, and we have some welcoming screen. I don't really care about this welcoming screen. If you don't want to see this, you can click that and say don't show it to me in the future, but some people may find this a very friendly thing to open up to, some suggestions and some help, but I don't really care what it's asking me. Okay, next I'm going to locate my journal file and change the storage options. You only need to do this the first time, and I will tell you most students don't do it properly, so I'm going to show you what to do in case that fails. Okay, but assuming you want to do it the smoothest way possible, you say edit options and file locations, and then you're going to make sure this is append, and you're going to put this in a place where you can access it, someplace where you have read and write access already. And for me, this is now being saved in a place where I have access. Okay, but the other thing you can do, so I'm going to assume if that works, great. Oh, I need to mention you need to be logged in on your OneDrive. So, I mean, you actually don't have to, but it's a good idea to. And so if this does not look exactly perfect, if it does not look like a solid cloud with 3 colors, you have to click on there on settings, and it you can log in. Right now I'm logged in, but here's where you would click everything to sort of summon the virtual assistant and get yourself logged in. And again, if that fails, you can probably just go ahead and leave things on the desktop. But historically, over the many years we've been using the virtual lab, there are times when you leave things on the desktop and they're not there when you come back. But as you can see, right now, I have a folder from Spring 23, Spring 25, Spring 24. So it's been stable for me for quite some time, but that doesn't mean it's going to be stable for every user. Because what happens when your account, something goes wrong with your account, then IT has to go in and hose your account and start over. So there is some small chance that if you leave something on the desktop, it might not stay there the next time you come back, but it usually does. Okay, so that warning. Now, let's see where else your journal file might go. Let's say you finish the assignment and you say, I only forgot one thing. I forgot to move my journal storage location to a place I have read and write access to. So in that case, the following instructions are for you. This is very, very common. So you need to make everything, first of all, readable to yourself. And so you want to go, like, I just usually open a recycle bin because it gets me to this menu as quick as I can. I want to say View, Options, Change Folder, and Search Options. And this is the box, this is the window I'm interested in. Right here, View. I want to make sure I show hidden files, folders, and drives. And I want to make sure I do not hide extensions for known file types. Both of those things are important to me. I want to see the full name of the file I'm dealing with, and I want to show everything. Okay, so then I would hit Apply, but I actually haven't changed anything, so I'm just going to cancel. But you would hit Apply, and then that takes effect for all your file navigation. It allows you to see things that were previously hidden. And so, for example, I'll show you where I expect this thing to be. If I say go to Windows, C, and then Users, notice that some of these things are now grayed out. Go to your username, and me is just Dietz, but it's whatever your username is. And then I'll see app data. This was grayed out. Well, it's yellowed out, but it's lighter. So it allows you to go down now where you weren't before. Roaming, IBM, SPSS, Statistics 1. And this is somewhere in here. There's my old statistics journal. So that's where the default location is for storing your journal. So if you didn't move your journal storage location, this is probably where it is. And so you can just take this and drag it straight out onto the desktop and you're fine. Okay, so don't freak out if you lose your journal. That's probably where it went. Okay, and I can help you with that, but those are the instructions in case you get stuck with that. Okay, all that bookkeeping, and now we're going to start actually doing the homework. So I'm going to load in the data. Well, it takes a while, I guess. All right, should be fine. It's a little scary when it disappears like that. Okay, here is this window of context that it's giving you. This is all the stuff that's getting stored to your journal file, but your and additional pictures. So it's going to give you pictures and other things. We're going to save this off as a PDF, but it's a combination of code and output, whereas the journal file is only the code. Okay, now we're going to do a recoding. Just like I did in the last video, I'm going to have high and low farms values. I'm going to do it slightly different than what I did in StatCrunch because it's different software. Okay, now if you had already saved your data after you created it in StatCrunch, then you can just read it back in, and then everything you stored will come back. So if you have already created new variables in a different piece of software and you bring it in, that's fine. But I want you to also know how to do this same trick within SPSS. So let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to say transform, recode into different variables, and it was lunch, and I'm going to call it farms. That means free and reduced meals for students, I think, and I have to click change. And then I'm going to go old and new values. I want to have a range in this case, like 80 and up. So I could use lowest through value, but I mean, I know that 100 is the top, so I'm just going to do this. I'm going to call this farms high, but it's actually a string, so I have to click this button because I didn't want to use a number. Farms high, and I'm going to show you something. It's only going to do farms high because it's only allowing me a certain number of characters, which is kind of annoying, but I'm going to just show you how this works. So right here, I don't even notice that this is happening until I go to compute it. Okay, add this one in, continue, okay, and then it does that. So then when I scroll over here, I'll notice something weird that, where's my data? See this, my farms variable, it only said high and low, like 2 characters LO and 2 characters HI, because I just ran out of space. It would have been nice if it would have told me that it ran out of space, but it didn't, and so I have to live with that. So I left that in there. I knew that little blooper would happen, but I wanted you to see that. Okay, so in the last video, I also changed the name of reading and writing. So I don't have to recode a variable if I'm simply renaming it. I just have to come in here and do this. And I wanted to make a point about scaffolding. Okay, I don't want you to forever keep renaming your variables, but you're still in the beginning stages of this course, and I'm okay with you doing it for a while. I don't want it to show up in your final project. And one thing I do want you to notice is that when you are asked to upload your data set, the data set you upload should be executable by the code you're giving me. Okay, so it doesn't really apply to SPSS, but it will start applying with Stata, R, and Python. When you give me your data set, if you're reading in a data set that says group underscore X underscore Y underscore, that's okay, but I want the code to match the names of the data. So don't give me the original data and then code that uses different names. So just be careful of that, because a lot of times people do that by accident. They just upload the wrong data set, and then I give them a 0 and say, please resubmit, your code doesn't execute. And it's just because they uploaded the wrong data set. Okay, so grades, I think I called the T variable. Whoops. Grades, T underscore. So I think I have everything. Farms was the one I called S, but I'm just not going to change that. Okay, you're going to start remembering which ones are your categorical variables, and oh, maybe school. Did I say school was one of them? Maybe I gave the schools. Schools was kind of a binary thing, right? There were only 2. I don't know. Schools. Was an S maybe. But whatever you do at this point, if you're going to work off of these data names, just save off that file and use the saved file as the one you give me. Again, this doesn't really apply to SPSS because I'm not going to execute your code, but it does apply to all your future homeworks after this. Okay, so I think I've hit that point. And generally people name their data my data, which is really pathetic, but they're doing that because I do it. So you can give your data a better name than that, but it's okay if you do. I understand. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple examples of what's going on here. I'm not going to go through the entire homework with you, but I'm now at the point of I just finished recoding, and I want to make a point that in SPSS, whenever you want to do an analysis by group, you need to split the data. And then when you're done doing the split data analysis, you have to unsplit it, which is kind of a pain, I know, but this is how you do it. So I can say data, split file, and then I have 3 choices. But basically, these second two choices are very, very similar. They're similar mathematically, but the output just looks different. It gives you really the same content. Okay, so analyze all cases means don't split it at all, and then compare groups versus organize by groups is very similar. And so when I say split, I don't really care which one of these two you pick. Row names is a bad one. You want to do it by a categorical. So for example, like that, and then you can say okay, and then the next thing you do is going to be, whatever you do is going to be split by that school variable. If you recall, schools is just a binary. There's two different kinds of schools in the data set, and so you're going to get the results for the smaller elementary schools and the results for the larger elementary schools as separate results. Okay, and when you're done with your analysis, you're going to say data split, and you're going to unsplit it by going back to analyze all cases. And now we've just undone that split. All the data are back together again. Okay? All right. So I didn't actually do anything. I just showed you how to make that switcheroo. Okay. Now, let me just give you a couple examples that I think are more fun. Let's do a box plot. That's bullet point number 12 currently. I'm going to just say graphs box plot. And then I'm going to select summaries for groups by cases. That's already selected. I'm going to hit define. I'm going to use anything numerical, and so I'm still kind of using this crutch that I underscored this as Y math to remind myself that that's a numerical variable. Okay, and then I'm going to hit OK. Oh wait, I need a category axis, so there we go. Let's do something like that. Then I can hit OK. And then I get my output. I get a whole bunch of data and some pretty pictures. Okay, so this is your math test scores based on the different counties where the schools are located. Okay, let me just do a couple more. Like most of these, you're just going to follow along and figure it out yourself. Oh yeah, I want to show you the pie chart because I want you to learn how to edit it. Okay, graphs, pie, summaries for group cases, yes. Slices, select option slices, represent percent of cases, define slices by your grouping variable. Okay, and then hit OK. Now I'm going to show you how to edit. This is just messy. This is not a good thing to use a pie chart for. I am very, very sorry about that. In fact, I'm just not going to do that one. I'm going to just change it right now. Sometimes you do something and you're like, that was just a bad idea. That literally gives me no information whatsoever. This is so bad. Okay, graphs pie, and define a different variable, because I know that this one has only 2 categories, so it should be easier to understand. Well, taking a while. Okay, but then what I want to do is I want to be able to edit what's going on with the pie chart. So as you notice this course, as we progress, you should learn to do more and more things on your own, and more things that you can edit and adjust. You know, I'm not really happy with this. I have no idea what's going on here. I'm going to, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to have to pause the video. Okay, what happened was even worse, and so I'm going to try another variable until I get a better pie chart. Okay, this is much better. Notice I accidentally did this whole mess twice, and it just took a really long time. And I don't know of any way to stop it when it does that. Some of the other software we'll be dealing with, if you do something and realize that you did something stupid, you can just stop that process. I do not know how to stop a process once it starts in SPSS, but I'm expecting a pie chart from you that does not have a million categories. It should have maybe anywhere between 2 and 10 max, maybe. But I mean, there may be some exceptions, but if you have something that just looks like a bicycle wheel, then that's not very useful. Okay, now you want to right click this thing, or if you're Mac, you might want to double click, I don't know. And then you want to edit it. And so your edit window pops up. Okay, now on each pie slice, or all at once, you're going to double click or right click and say show data labels. So you want to ask it to show data labels. This will open up the property windows. Ask for both group and percent as labels. So I have the percent in there, data labels. So this guy goes up there. So now I'm going to have both group and percent as labels. And then apply and close. Okay, and now when I close this window, it should just update so that my graph looks the way I wanted it. And so that was my learning objective, to get you to just get in there and edit this guy with the edit window so that you have both the group name and the percent right there. You can also change it so this little guy disappears if you want. It's not necessary. So there you go. So you were able to edit a graphic. Now let's see, another thing we can do is, I really like showing people graphical stuff. So I'm going to show you scatter plot with X versus Y, and this is somewhere in category 19 or 20 for graphics. Okay, now you're going to say something like graph, scatter plot, simple scatter, and for X you're going to pick whatever you wanted for your X categorical variable. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can split it the other way. All right, and then you're going to go OK, and again you're going to right click to edit this thing. You're going to say add fit line at total, something like that. This is add fit line at total, and there you go. All right, so that can work. And it's a little trickier to do it when it's split. But for the split scatter plot, do not split the data, because the data splitting functionality is already wrapped up in the tool itself. So you do not need to go and split your data. Otherwise, if you split your data, you'll get two separate graphs. What we want is not two separate graphs or n separate graphs. Is what we want is one graph with all the data on it. So we're not going to do split data. And so you're going to do graph instead, graph, scatter plot, simple scatter, X is X, Y is Y, and then we're going to say group is group by your categorical. It's going to say set markers by. All right, and then you're going to get two different colors, one for each of your categorical groups. Interesting, right? And then you can edit this guy, and you can do two separate fit lines, add a fit line for each subgroup, and there you go. Okay, and so this is annoying because it's telling you that this fit line is blue and these circles are blue. Sometimes, I'm not really sure why, but sometimes they combine these into one symbol, and sometimes they split it off as two separate symbols. I wouldn't worry so much about that. What I would concern myself though is that this thing is annoyingly, they made this so that these things are on top of each other, and so I do want you to split this off. you should be able to put that little icon far away. And let's see, this one is fine the way it is, but just for symmetry, I'd rather drag it too so that it looks prettier. You can spend way too much time trying to drag these things around, but you do need to make it visible. There we go. See, that's much better, because what you've done is you've dragged these formulas far away from the data so they're not interfering with the data. And even though, you know, you might have to look a second to figure out which goes with which, you know that this, if you're not colorblind, you know red goes with red and blue goes with blue. If color blindness is something that's an issue for somebody, you can pick better colors. So for example, you can go here and then pick these colors yourself. I can change, I'm going to double click this. I should be able to pick the color of the line, and it's a dark pink. Maybe I wanted to make the blue a lighter blue, so maybe I can, or maybe I wanted to make it, I don't know what color. I can update that color if I want. I don't like that color, but the point is I can update these colors until they make me happy. Okay, so that's where you go to update the colors. I don't want to see colors that are completely indistinguishable. I don't want like a deep cranberry and a dark red. I don't want that, but green and red is okay as long as your whoever you're making your graphs for can see them. But also just generically be conscious of the fact that these colors may be hard for anybody to see. So just be kind to the person who's going to view your output. All right, so there you go. And I think that's really what I wanted to show you, is how to adjust those graphics. Everything else should be pretty straightforward for you. And if you have any trouble, that's what I'm here for. But hopefully that gives you the gist of what you need to do. Now, I'm going to assume that you've finished everything and that you're at the bottom of the instructions and you're trying to save off your work. Okay, so now you want to export your output. I'm going to say File, Export. Where is it? You need to do this in the output window, not the data window. So most of these little drop-down menus are the same for both of these windows, but this is one exception. You want to be in the output window, and you want to make sure you ask for a PDF, and it's going to go somewhere. I don't care, but you got to put it somewhere where you can see it. It looks like it's just going to go to my desktop, which is fine by me. Okay, and then I'm going to hit OK. And then that's it. It's going to take a while. It's going to take longer for you because you're going to have more stuff than I just did. You're going to have the entire homework. And so do not close down this session until you verified two things. And let me make a point. If you happen to get disconnected from the virtual lab by accident, your session may still be perfectly fine. You know, the virtual lab exists independent of whether you're connected to it. And so even if you're doing this and you happen to realize your computer's unplugged, your computer dies, don't freak out, because it's probably fine. You can probably just, you know, restart the virtual lab and your work may very likely be sitting right there waiting for you when you get back. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm going to just pause this for a while. Okay, so this should be working. All right. It took a really long time, and I'll tell you why. It's because I did these crazy graphs that I shouldn't have done. That's what took the lion's share of all that time, recording all that, saving that as a output file. I'm going to just double click this and make sure that this output file looks the way I expected. It should have captured every crazy thing I did, whether I intended to do it or not. Everything that showed up on my output screen should show up in the output PDF. So that's consistent. Now the other thing I want to check is to make sure my journal file is where I expect it to be and it has what I expect it to. So if I forget where, I don't remember where my journal file was, it's going to be over here. It's in my OneDrive under Stat 426. So I can go down here. It's wherever you wanted it. Where's my OneDrive? OneDrive, Stat 426, and here's my statistics journal. Now, my journal is going to look very different from yours. I'm going to rename it, because remember I changed the option in settings that I could see my file extensions so that I can do this. I'm changing this to, okay, so the reason I can't change the name of the file is because specifically I have it open and I'm writing to it. So I'm going to try making a copy and putting it on the desktop. All right. Now that said, try to move it. I want to try to copy it. Aha. Copy here. It should be able to work. If that works, I'm going to minimize all this and make sure everything's the way I expect it to be. So I'll show you what I'm looking for. I'm going to take this copy. I should be able to rename this copy because this copy is not in use. This is a copy, so I should be safe. Now I'm going to open this and make sure that it has the kind of stuff I'm expecting, and it does. It shows me all the stuff I just did. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay, so this thing you should ignore, okay, honestly, because this should actually be today's date for you. For me, it says February 5th, because obviously I've been appending a whole bunch of stuff, but you should be able to see the top of, like, for example, this is today for me. This is at my actual journal file from today, and it's okay if there's extra stuff in your journal file. So if I were worried, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I'm not worried anymore. I have my output file and my journal file. Those are ready for submission. Now that I've confirmed that that's saved, I can now go ahead and end this. I don't need to save this anymore. And I'm closing down SPSS after I've made sure I've saved off everything I need. There we go. And so then I'm going to open up, I'm going to submit it right away. I'm going to go to okay, yeah, open up Microsoft Edge or whatever browser is on here that you like, and then you go to americaninstructure.com, and then you go ahead and log in, and you can go ahead and submit those right from here. You don't have to transport those back to your home computer if you don't want to, because once they're in Canvas, they are in a safe, secure place. So you do that, and if that's all done successfully, then you never have to touch SPSS again unless you love it. Okay, and then that's the end of that assignment. You can go ahead and log out of the virtual lab, or you can just be mean and close this. It actually does not hurt anything. You can just go ahead, bye, virtual lab, and then that's the end. And you'll see it again for Stata. Okay, so hopefully that was useful to people, and just let me know if you have any questions.